All right. So I want to let people hear my drink. I poured my first cocktail. I'm not saying it's my last, Mosley, because I knew I don't pick favorites much in the NFL, but you could kind of feel this one. Dan Quinn, his old team, little chip on his shoulder. You know, it's funny, Matt, because it's not that Dallas lost. They were so physically dominated by Denver. You did have a feeling this week, I imagine, as somebody who covers the team, it did feel like they were going to bounce back. Was this kind of, I mean, it was so lopsided, but did you see it coming a little?
Yeah, I'm glad to know you called this shot. I did see it. I don't think I knew it was going to be this dominant, but I thought they were embarrassed. The Quinn factor, and of course they did the game ball and did all the things you would expect them to do after the game. But I think this one, we're at the Super Bowl and we're hanging. Where is it? You're part of the world, and in Los Angeles. They'll look back at that Denver game as a major crossroads sort of big moment. But I think the best thing for Cowboys fans is I think it's a freak out. It's one thing to get beat. I think there's a freak out factor when your quarterback looks that confused and he's throwing those kinds of passes. Like, I think we've sort of taken him for granted, and even you, who doubted him for years, has finally put him in that elite category. And so to see him backslide and have a horrible game is just weird. Today, he did everything he needed to. Their defense was dominant, and the best thing you can say for them is they again lost another really good player. Yeah, looks like a pretty heavy pour that you had there.
Very strong pour.
They lost Randy Gregory, and I think we've covered this in the past. I mean, he's become one of their best players.
Oh yeah,
and it didn't even seem like they missed him. Like Atlanta early on looked like they were just going to throw to Kyle Pitts all day. It was like 17, 18, 17, and then they never did anything the rest of the game.
Yeah. You know, it's funny about this year, Matt. It's a really strange year. Brady gets shelled today. Russell Wilson, can't score. Last week, the Bills lost to the Jags. The Ravens beaten by Miami. The Rams have had a couple of stinkers at home. Carolina destroys Arizona, though it's not with Kyler Murray. But, I was saying this in the prelude to you, is that Tennessee and New England now, they don't have the ceiling of Buffalo. But Tennessee and New England are the most consistently good teams in the last month in the AFC. I look over at the NFC. The Rams now without Woods. You cross your fingers on OBJ's health. Their offensive line's been pushed around. Brady's in a little bit of a funk now, back-to-back games. You start looking at Green Bay. I think it's the best defense they've had in years, but I haven't felt all year the offense is right. Last time I had you on, I said this. You take out one game, to me, Dallas is the most consistent team in the NFC. They really are. Arizona, I almost give them a bit of a pass, but we don't have DeMarcus Lawrence. We've had injuries. Tyron Smith, Michael Gallup. I have historically been not anti-Cowboy, but pretty cynical. This is the first year I can remember since one of Romo's early years that I'm like, this team could win the Super Bowl. Do you feel that today?
Yeah, the Romo year you would have been talking about was 2007, and they had a run, and the Giants beat them at the end of the game, and they could have caught a touchdown there, and the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl. And so I do feel like that for the very reasons you talked about. I think some of these other teams are so flawed, and I wrote about this for FoxSports.com this week over on I thought, well, what are they doing on the offensive line? And that's one thing that McCarthy's being very stubborn on. I thought he should leave the guy at right tackle.
Terrence Steele.
That Terrence Steele has been so good. And, Lyle Collins could move over the left side. Well, today, Terrence Steele looked fine. And he just was a fish out of water last week. He'd never really played left tackle, and it felt completely wrong. Well, another thing that helps is that they have Joe Philbin as their O-line coach. They have tried. Jerry, oddly enough, doesn't always do great with assistant coaches. And sometimes they'll just put like ex-Cowboys players or people that just kind of aren't that qualified at some of these positions. McCarthy's put together an adult staff. And so they've got a really good O-line coach in Philbin. And so think about this. What they have is sort of part of their staff are failed head coaches. And that sounds like I'm making light of it. But the truth is they've sort of seen it and they know the ups and downs of that. Quinn's been around great defenses. He's at one point, we thought his Atlanta team, they had a chance to win the Super Bowl. So they've sort of seen the top. And then Philbin saw the bottom when he was with the Dolphins, but they're battle tested. So I think their coaching staff is sort of something that's maybe not getting talked about enough. And I would just say that you were one of the first people who brought this up. Parsons is a maniac.
Oh, he's just easily the best athlete on the field in virtually every Cowboy game I've seen.
Yeah, he's impossible to block. And this is a credit to McCarthy or Quinn, whoever came up with this. So they made the decision to say, you know what? Why don't we let him just line up and go after people? It made a lot of sense. They gave a safety, Jaron Curse, the mic in his helmet, and they said, that's a lot for a rookie to do, to have to relay the play, get everybody lined up. Let's give it to a veteran. And now they have this journeyman veteran. I mean, think about all these guys that are playing starring roles. There's a guy named Casey. He was number 18 out there. Curse is number 27. Wilson's number 6. And they're just like random sort of okay fringe type players from the past. And Quinn's got them all like meshed together, playing really well. Like Van Der Esch was supposed to be some great linebacker. Well, he's not that guy, but he's fine. He made plays today. They couldn't run on the Cowboys. And then in the what's happened is Diggs is so great at his timing and everything. One thing that had slipped against Denver and even the previous week against Minnesota was their takeaways had gone down.
Yep.
And then today they had a bunch of those. And I do think those things kind of come in bunches. And that's another thing. Sometimes I have to try a little too hard to find things to brag on McCarthy. But one of the things that he's been good at Green Bay and now with the Cowboys is turnover margin. And that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's a pretty huge thing in the NFL.
Give me, where are we at on the Kellen Moore and the Mike McCarthy offensive, what's the word I'm looking for? Control. Where are they at on that? Give me some insight from Dallas. We know Kellen calls the plays. What is Mike's influence on that over Kellen, or is it Kellen and Dak's offense? Matt?
I think the best thing he's done is sort of take hands off on all that. Now, his analytics group that he holed up with in that barn when he was off for a year, he has really, really fallen in love with going for it on fourth down. And I think for the most part, that's worked out for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. 4th and 5, 4th and 2, he's just not, he's down there at the 30-yard line. You got a chance to kick about a 50-yard field goal or whatever. I mean, he's not even thinking about it. And I think even it happens in games. I think the Atlanta coach got freaked out a little bit early today and was like, he could have taken a field goal to make it 7-6. And he just said, nah, I think I'm going to go for it. And I think it's sometimes another coach can get lured into that. Mike believes in it. And so how that plays out, I've seen this with college teams too, Colin. Like Kellen and him are on such a great page right now that Kellen will start at 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7 instead of your typical play trying to get a first down. If he's on a certain place on the field, they'll run the ball and they'll just get it to 4th and 2. And so they already have a 4th and 2 play in mind. And they're not the only ones in the NFL doing it, but he believes in it. And Garrett used to kind of flop back and forth. Oh, wait, now I'm going to go for it. I'm going to be a go for it coach. Oh, no, now I'm the most conservative guy in the world. This guy has become a go for it coach. So I think they're in a good place. Now, what will happen if Kellen gets hired somewhere? Because he's going to have every opportunity in the world. Everybody wants to hire him. TCU has nobody. They want to hire him. Washington, I just think I saw earlier today is UW is firing its coach. I mean, he's from that part of the world. Everybody's going to go after this guy. Now, he'll end up in the NFL somewhere. So we'll see. McCarthy may, if they go with a new coach, McCarthy may want to be the bigger voice again, like he was in Green Bay. That might be what he wants to do. But to his credit, he has not like big-footed this guy at all. It's like, I think Kellen's doing a nice job. And the other thing is he understands Kellen and Dak have some kind of like buddy type thing going. And it's a very, it's a great relationship. Like, I think Jerry might, I don't know if it'll work, but he did this with Sean Payton and Mike Zimmer years and years ago. Jerry may try to blow this guy away with a number to keep him. Like literally just go, you can be a head coach anytime, but then it gets tricky because that number may be the exact same number he's paying McCarthy. And that's where it gets a little dicey.
Well, listen, what are they paying McCarthy? 5.5?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, 5.5, 6. So they may, what do they do with Scott Frost? They may approach him about a restructure. Nothing fires up fan base like a good restructured contract. Just take a little money away from him or something. Give it to Kellen.
I think Kellen Moore would be great at Washington, but you know your Baylor and Texas football. I know my Washington, and I can't divulge who it's going to be, but a West Coast coach currently coaching is going to be offered the job at Washington, and I have to stop right there. Anyway, we'll get to your college stuff in a second. I know. Listen, Mosley, you're not the only one breaking. You're not the only one breaking stories here. Okay, you're talking about.
You are very plugged in.
Yes, very Pac-12 plugged in. Of course, the Pac-12 now is like intramural football compared to some of these conferences. I was thinking about this. I've always had this belief. Like, I have certain beliefs to be true. Young teams can't win NBA finals. Why? Because the refs swallow their whistles and more physical, thicker, older players push around kids. We saw it last year in Milwaukee with the Suns. We saw it with the Lakers in the bubble against Miami. That's one of my theories. You can't win a championship as a young team in the NBA because the refs swallow their whistles. Big advantage, older, stronger players. In baseball, can't win a World Series with a bad bullpen. You can't be giving up runs in the 7th, 8th, 9th. Can't win. In the NFL, to win a Super Bowl, you need like 6 players minimum, 6 to 7 players having great years, like playmakers. So I'm gonna give you the Dallas players I think are playmakers.
All right.
Zeke has become a playmaker again. CeeDee Lamb has become a playmaker again. Micah Parsons is a playmaker. Trayvon Diggs is a playmaker. Randy Gregory is a playmaker. And I would say Dak is a playmaker. But I think Dallas is now, in my opinion, is now qualifying as a Super Bowl team, where they have like 6 guys that can make a play against the Rams, against Brady, CeeDee Lamb, Zeke, Dak, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, absolutely Randy Gregory, and potentially DeMarcus Lawrence whenever he comes back. Am I missing anybody? Is there an unsung hero on this Dallas team?
Well, Schultz has been extreme. I mean, he's come on and he has become somewhat of a weapon. It's not every week, but Dak loves him. And I think Pollard's a playmaker. I mean, I think he's just flat out, you get him in space and he can do so many things. I mean, this is a team that honestly, compared to a lot of these other teams is I think loaded. And Zeke even said something to that effect today. We're that team, but we can't afford to have these, kind of like what happened to him last week. But no, I think you pretty much, I think you covered it. And I think that's enough to do something pretty special if you have that many playmakers. And I think they're, I just sensed it today after the game. I think there was a certain amount of embarrassment, anger, and then Fangio got them fired up. I mean, Vic saying, I don't know why, nobody's played them the right way. And from a coaching standpoint, all the coaches took a little offense to that. And the Atlanta Falcons had to bear the brunt of that.
Okay, so I can't bring you on. We both have an incredible passion for college football. So I'm going to give you my spiel, and you can just push back on it. Congratulations to Baylor. They've done very well against Oklahoma. They're the only team in the country that shuts down Oklahoma consistently now, that offense. So 3 years in a row, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row. So everybody wanted Brian Kelly out. Notre Dame's back to being a top 5 program. Nick Saban first year lost to Louisiana Monroe. With Carson Palmer and Troy Polamalu, Pete Carroll went 6-6 in his first year. This stuff's hard. Harbaugh, one more win this year, will have a 10-win season for the 4th time. We love getting rid of coaches. But I look at Sark, and outside of the Iowa State game, the offense is not the issue. He inherited some talent, most of it on the offensive side. So my takeaway is there's a lot of heat in him right now. It's the longest losing streak since whatever, the 50s. And my takeaway is, okay, I've watched Pete Carroll and Saban have embarrassing first years or embarrassing losses. Or do you believe Sark looks over his skis and there are people inside Texas that are thinking, we whiffed?
Yeah, I think the we whiffed has already started. That doesn't mean he can't turn it around, but there are even people who are saying, well, Herman would have done better than this. Herman
is so difficult to get along with. Tom's hard to get along with.
He was such, he could be to the media and everything. The thing you have to say about Sark, and you know him, is he's maintained his cool and his poise, but something that I don't know if Saban had to deal with, and I don't know, if some of these other coaches had to deal with. There's just some goofiness that happens. There was the thing about the monkey and one of his assistant coaches and the stripper. Okay, so that happens, and then some coach goes crazy on a bus, and somehow they decide to rally around that. The only pushback I would give you is that Kansas is a historically horrible program.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm saying is, at least when Saban did that, or Pete did it at the start, they were taking over a program that had really, really fallen off. And people, and I'm talking about the chancellor, I'm talking about the Board of Regents, they don't, and I'm sure Alabama's somewhat the same, they don't view it as, oh, Herman had run us into the ground. It's, if we get the right coach, we should be able to turn this around quickly. They always think it's right around the corner. I'm just saying they're not going to fire him after this season, but he doesn't have much of a, he just doesn't have much of a runway here.
It's interesting. I've always had this feeling about 2 programs in the country. After a while, Matt, we all are what we are. The 2 programs in this country that just don't win a lot, and even when they've had great runs, they've been quick, are USC and Texas. And I tell people this all the time. They're glamour programs. So when they win, the networks love it. They put their games on. And they lose good assistants, and they get into their feels. I mean, God, when USC was winning with Pete Carroll, 60 Minutes was doing specials on them. They were the talk of Los Angeles. And I tell people this that live in Los Angeles. They could never do what Alabama's doing. It's just not, if you start looking at the Woody Hayeses and the Bobby Bowdens and these coaches that have had these 25 Joe Paterno 30-year stretches, USC's good for about 5 years. Then the coach gets gassed up and goes to the pros, John Robinson, Pete Carroll, McKay. If you're big in LA, it means the networks are looking at you. The NFL's looking at you. If you're big in Auburn, you're just big in Auburn. You're big in the South. And I feel the same way about Texas, though I don't have the insight you do, is that Austin is cool. It's everybody's favorite place in broadcasting to go to a game is LA and Austin. Everybody loves it. Texas hospitality, music, food. It's one of the great medium-sized cities in America. If a coach is good, they get gassed up. It's also, I think USC and Texas, they're kind of glamour programs. They tend to be, they're a little finesse. They always feel like, whereas like when Bama's good, it's about the intensity and the toughness. Mm-hmm. When Texas and USC are good, they're slick, they're fast, they're athletic. Mm-hmm. You take me inside to Texas because I just don't think they win as much. I mean, they don't win nearly as much as Oklahoma, but I think they're often viewed in that same strata.
Yeah. Well, because they're so into branding, that's all they talk about, that like it's going to enhance their brand to be in there. NFL scouts for years, and I guess this is still true, although they're just not getting that many players drafted. They felt, even under Mac Brown, that the culture there, like the facilities were so gorgeous and the players were so pampered. And again, Alabama's got great facilities. Clemson has unbelievable facilities. Baylor has great facilities. But there is some sort of culture there that if you talk to enough NFL scouts, they'll go, we're leery of these guys because of the way they come out. Now, Charlie Strong tried to change that. And he had like the players, they couldn't wear earrings anymore. And they had to have they couldn't wear ball caps in class. And he tried to go like way old school. And that didn't work either. They didn't, and Charlie didn't get much time. And that thing just wasn't going anywhere. So the finesse is not a bad way to put it. There's a culture of softness that comes with them. And I think the maddening thing to their fans, and they'll think I'm, hitting with a sharp stick, but they look at Art Briles years ago. They look at Matt Rule after that. They look at Dave Aranda, who aren't recruiting people in Texas's stratosphere, yet they're winning.
Yes.
Part of that is they know what they're looking for, and they know how to develop people. Gary Patterson used to be unbelievable at TCU, and he got kind of stale, and his time has ended there. But I think they're always looking for the shortcut. You know what the shortcut for Texas was? Here's a guy in Sark that is, they're winning national titles at Alabama, unbelievable offensive mind. That's what we want. We want his offense. They don't think about, is Sark a great fit? What do we think about Texas? The thing I would tell you about Texas is, and look, California's got great, Pennsylvania, all these places, Georgia, they got great high school football. I'm not even saying it's the best high school football, which it probably is. But the coaches have such a togetherness and they protect their own that Sark has to overcome all sorts of stuff. Now, what he has for him is he's at the flagship university. But when he goes to those big 6A great high schools, the Allens of the world in Texas high school, they're immediately like outsider. Like Matt Rule at Baylor was smart enough to immediately hire some of the greatest high school coaches in Texas and get them onto his staff, because the Texas High School Coaches Association is one of the strongest organizations in all of sports, maybe in all of companies or whatever. But I'm just saying you can't. So I just think Sark is in a tough spot, and things have gone against him. And I hope he does have time to go recruit. But think about it. He goes from Alabama. I just don't even think he had a great feel for what he was getting into. It was like, okay, we wanted Urban. We can't get Urban. Let's go hire the guy from Alabama. I think he still doesn't have a clue what he's in for right now.
All right, Mike, I'm going to go back to the Cowboys because I want to put this out there. Okay, Matt, I look at the Cowboys schedule. It really works in their favor. I think Dallas can end up as the number 1 seed in the NFC. So they get Patrick Mahomes next, and he's off, right? It's a perfect time to get Patrick Mahomes. Then they host the Raiders, interim coach, a little bit in disarray right now. Then they get, oh, Lord. Then they're going to get the Saints at home, so they're facing their number 2 quarterback. They go to Washington for Taylor Heineke. They face Daniel Jones on the road. They get Taylor Heineke at home. Then it's Kyler Murray at home and Jalen Hurts. Let's say they lose to Arizona. This has a chance to be a number 1 seed, right? Right?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And for whatever reason, earlier this season, they had a lot of things falling right for them with key players being out. And you just mentioned some of them, some of these teams that are already down to their second quarterback. The thing that makes this team different from even some of the teams that got on a roll is that they're just deeper. And you've talked about it, some of their playmakers, but I'm just saying, even on down the roster, there was a team they had, it was pretty good several years ago under Garrett, and they went to Atlanta, and like one guy got 7 sacks against them. He went off and got a nice contract out of it. I mean, he had 6 or 7 sacks in one game against some backup tackle. And now their depth is good. I mean, Tyron Smith's still a great player, but he's banged up all the time. This is, you see these NBA players that you're lucky to get 40 games out of them. I think he's entered a stage in his career where you'd be extremely fortunate to get 10 games a year. He's still good when he's healthy. He's about as good as there is out there. Yeah, their O-line is, I mean, for the most part, they can be really, really good. I think you're onto something. And I think they showed that game against Denver was just one horrible clunker, which does happen.
All right, Mosley, congratulations on Baylor. I know, listen, I follow you on Twitter. You get very excited. It's not a huge national brand, but it's a nice stadium on a river. I don't know what the river is. It looks very idyllic. I'm very happy for you. Mm-hmm. I couldn't name 6 Baylor players, but I'm very happy for you. And this is Baylor. Is Dr. Pepper still based there? Is that still their big thing?
It's where it's from. It's where It's got the Dr. Pepper Museum.
Now, Are you Baptist? It's a Baptist university.
I am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you go there because of that, or did you just like the girls? Why'd you go there?
Try to convert me here from Baptist. Although BYU came in, I'm thinking the Mormons, I kind of enjoyed what they had to offer. I did marry a gorgeous Tridelt from Baylor, but I am a 4th generation. My great grandparents went to Baylor. And so it's a little like that. It gets in the family. And, my daughter.
Is it private?
Wants to go there. It is private.
Let me guess, yes. 11,000 people, 12,000?
Yeah, somewhere in there. It's getting larger all the time. So I think it's actually up to like 14 or 15,000 now, which, is bigger than like SMU, TCU, all those schools. So it's pretty decent size private school.
Well, you should be very proud of yourself. Your school is good now. It's got things going on. You got the Cowboys. The Longhorns are just free falling, and this all for you. In Dallas, when you have a little bit of a negative Longhorn vibe, how's that play?
Oh, it's okay. I mean, I've had producers that have wished I wouldn't constantly poke them with a sharp stick. It's the whole, a lot of Longhorns listen, but I think it's fine. There's enough people from outside our state sort of think sometimes what everybody in Texas roots for the Longhorns, and that is absolutely not the truth. But people, much like, the Yankees or other places, other teams, the Cowboys, people do kind of love to hate on Texas, and they give people a lot of reason to. I mean, I've got great friends that are at University of Texas. There's just a level, and there may be a school in California or Portland area where you come from that you could say this about. There's a level of arrogance that comes with that particular school. But a lot of awesome people come out of there too.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Great seeing you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that last part. It's too bad you're going to edit it all out.
I don't edit shit, man. We let it play.